Hello and welcome back to another Blue Mage video with me, Meoni. Today we're going to quickly tell you how you can get the Glitterier than Goldor title, as well as the brand new weapon design contest winner's weapon, which happens to be a 530 Blue Mage weapon called the Gentle Mage's Umbrella, as well as the hidden achievement that actually gives you that, which is called the All That Glitters is Glue. Blue? Rather, achievement, not glue. Right, so in regards to getting the achievement, then you're going to need a few spells. You're going to be wanting to complete a challenge on the brand new entry into the Blue Mage Carnival. Specifically for entry 32, a golden opportunity, which is a 2-act fight added in patch 6.45. You'll see that there's a standardized completion time and all the rest of it. We are not concerned with time this time around, so if you want it, you do not have to be quick, which is really nice. All you have to do is get 3 of the bonuses, okay? So the 3 bonuses you need are Elemental Mastery, okay, which, as you can see, if we find it on here, is cast all spells aspected to all 6 elements. So we'll go over what spells we're going for in a moment. A Walk in a Park, which is this one, which is refrained from using sprint, so you're not allowed to use sprint. So I would just do what I ended up doing after I accidentally used it one of the attempts and cleared it. Take sprint off your bar and don't look back. And then don't break the gem. That's the other one, which is very specific to this fight. You'll notice that it doesn't even list that here, right? Don't think it does anyway. Yeah, it doesn't seem to show you that, but that is the other thing. So the gem that they're talking about is in Act 2. Partway through this, you'll see this crystal is actually attackable. So any AoEs that you do could actually kill this thing because it's very low health. Now, it's going to take a few casts and you can hit it a couple of times accidentally with AoEs, but you don't want to be focused on any sort of ability in phase 2, or at least partially through the fight, that will actually hit him. So with that in mind, these are the spells that I went for. So let's open our Blue Magic Spellbook and I'll go through them. First of all, we've got Loom. This is mandatory. If you want to get out of the gravity during the fight, you're going to need this. Put this somewhere on your bar that you can find. Whenever you get gravity to the spot and he starts casting his blast, you need to use Loom to get out of the AoE. This happens usually twice back to back. Another thing you need, mandatory, is Flying Sardine. This actually is your interrupt. There are other interrupts, but this is the one I would suggest going for. Flying Sardine, you just press it, it's instant cast, it interrupts the spell. This is for interrupting his blizzard casts. Then we have ourselves Sea Shanty. This is mandatory because it is a water spell. That is the water spell that we're going to do because, again, we need all of those elements ticked off. Then we've got White Wind because we need some kind of heal. I'm going in as DPS Etherical Mimicry, which is spell 77, by the way, just to get me cleared a little bit quicker, because otherwise it'll take me forever and I don't care about survivability if I've got a heal. Then I've got Ultra Vibration. This is very important if you want to kill the slime that spawns. You'll see in the fight in a moment very quickly. So what we do is we freeze that with Ram's Voice and then we Ultra Vibrate it away. That way we're only using 2 GCDs, we're not wasting time, and it does actually cast an explosion that kills everybody very quickly if you do not freeze it and vibrate it away. So that's what we do. Then we've got Breath of Magic. The reason we've got Breath of Magic is mostly because it's a dot, and why would you not want an extra dot? We've got Diamondback. I would say this is pretty much mandatory unless you're going in as a tank. Probably a healer could survive with like the enhanced gobskin, but we're doing this as DPS in this video. We're taking Diamondback. This is for use on phase 2 at the start, actually, when there's overlapping AoEs. We can just Diamondback through those. I'll show you on the fight. Then we've got Off Guard. This is just to get a bit of extra damage. Obviously 5% damage, 15-second buff, pretty good. We've got Feather Rain, which we're using as one of our wind abilities. This is also very useful for destroying the fire adds later on, but it's also pretty good just to have a dot rolling. Ram's Voice we talked about to freeze the ad. We've got Being Mortal. I like having this on. It's got quite a nice high potency thing. It's a huge cooldown, but it does a lot of damage. I like it. Sonic Boom is pretty much what we're going to be spamming in between everything else being off cooldown, at least in phase 1. Then we've got Whistle, just to give us extra potency on the next cast. I like to take that. Shock Strike is one of the things that you need to take. I took this because it ticks off one of those elements for Elemental Mastery. Etherical Mimicry is pretty much mandatory at this point because you want a stance. Why would you not want a stance, either tank, healer, or DPS? As again, I've clicked this on a DPS to get the DPS buff to make this quicker. Then we've got Super Knacker. The reason we went for Super Knacker is we're using this as our Earth skill. You could, of course, go for any other Earth skill, but Super Knacker instant cast, you can just walk around during the AoE's landing. It just gives you higher uptime as you're walking around. Then we've got J-Kick. This is especially useful in phase 2. It's a distance mover. You can, gap close. I usually use J-Kick and then straight into a Phantom Flurry for phase 2's like golden phase, which we'll get to in a moment. Exuviation is really useful because a debuff will be cast on you when you cast Thunder. This is like it's nearly a minute long, the debuff, and it really ticks quite annoyingly. And of course, you don't want to be getting into mana problems, so just exuviate that when you can. Then I went for Mortal Flame. I was using Flame Agnon, but Mortal Flame does fire damage, and we can put that on. I would say there is a bug with Mortal Flame unless you cast something else before it, so do not initiate the fight in either phase with Mortal Flame if you're wanting to tick off the Elemental Mastery. Some people have encountered bugs that I've read on the forums by casting this first, so you want to just cast anything else and then Mortal Flame, so don't necessarily do that as your first move. Okay, then we've got Winged Reprobation, high DPS, 4 casts of this stacks. You use this in phase 2, and I'll show you why later. Then we've got Matra Magic, which is just high DPS. Why wouldn't you want that? Then Abyssal Transfixion is what we're going to be spamming in the latter part of phase 2 as well. And then we've got Phantom Flurry, which is awesome, and Night Bloom because of the extra dot damage. And that's pretty much my setup. Nice and clear. Hopefully you understood that. Let's go into the fight and put it into context. Okay, so with this in mind, we have 3 objectives. Do not break the crystal, use all 6 elements, and do not sprint. We're just going to start off with a fight jumping straight in with our J-Kick. You'll see he's casting Blizzard 3. In this case, we're going to use our Sardine to interrupt that. We're keeping our dots on as much as possible using Breath of Magic. We're casting our Mortal Flame once to put that burning debuff on the boss, to tick that box for the elements, and then we've also got Night Bloom ticking as well. We're going to keep going around in circles. He'll do lots of AoEs at this section, and Goldor Blasts, which are frontal line AoEs. Just simply avoid that stuff. Just run around in a circle. Keep your DPS up as much as you possibly can until he casts Slimy Summon. This will summon an ice ad. Essentially what you do here is the boss will do like a quake animation. So we're going to Ram's Voice to freeze the ad. We're going to step in to the quake when it fades, so we avoid the other one. And then we're going to Ultra Vibration to get rid of the slime. That's how you want to do that. Next up then, we're going to go back into just doing a bit of DPS. He's going to do Goldor Fire. This summons loads of fire ads. At the same time, he'll also do Blast, so we're going to kite that over here, whilst also using Sonic Boom against an ad of our choice. We're picking a safe zone, basically. Sonic Boom is a wind-based ability. You could use Alpine Draft if you had that instead, and you can also use Feather Rain. Once we've been knocked back into our safe zone, we sidestep his blast, that's a follow-up, and then we jump into the boss again. He'll do Goldor Gravity now. This is why we need Loom, because we're stuck to the floor. Essentially, he'll do blasts now, and we're looming away from those blasts. As simple as that. Try to keep up some damage, but don't risk it. Make sure you can actually loom out the way. It's only 2 looms, and then you can go back to DPSing. Don't waste time. That's what I would say. Keep your DPS high. Make sure you've cast every single element. Next is Thunder 3. This is when we start to use Exuviation to remove that debuff. At the same time, he'll do Blast and a load of other AoEs. Just simply avoid those. The reason we Exuviate so quickly is because it's like a 50-second or more debuff that quite chunks your health, and we don't want to waste mana, so we're just going to do that. Next, we've got another Blizzard to interrupt with our Sardine, and you'll start to see a repetition of a lot of the abilities. There are some slight changes, so we'll keep going. With Goldor Fire, he will actually use Thunder at the same time as using these balls of fire. There'll also be AoEs going off. So what we do is we try to Sonic Boom one of these fireballs down as quick as possible. We then exuviate that debuff off of us, and then we be careful to see which pancake's going to go off first before we go into our knockback into our safe zone. He doesn't follow up with a blast here, so that's not as bad as it could be. Then we're going to reapply our dots, and he should be pretty low at this point. He's going to follow up with a gravity. It's the same as before. I'm just going to let this play out. We're going to make sure we're topped up. Gravity does quite a bit of damage, but we can heal through it. We're going to loom away from the gravities, 2 of those obviously, and then we're going to finish off the boss. It's not too difficult once you get into it. It looks a little bit messy, and obviously I'm not MLG Pro, so my DPS rotation is awful, but again, we're not against a timer, so I don't really care. Next, also the other thing to point out is you can get hit by things. There isn't a the challenge does not require you to not be hit. So you can be hit as much as you want, but if you get hit, there's a likelihood that you'll die, because a lot of the AoEs and stuff do an insane amount of damage. Next then into Act 2, we're going to jump straight in. Basically, at the start of the fight, it's going to teach you the basic mechanics. He's going to be focused around summoning adds. So the first Shining Summon will summon these massive guys from Shadowbringers, if you remember these. I like to think of them as the Brickmen. From Dragon Quest. They do a knockback into like this hatched segment. So find the safe zone between them, exactly like that, like a diamond shape. And then that's pretty much that mechanic to learn, right? Then he will summon his next set of adds. This time we're getting Calcabrinas that face and do a laser beam that will kill you. Essentially at the same time we're using Quake here. So what we have to do is step in, then step back out, and then diamond back to survive the beam before it goes off. It's a little bit tight, but you've got a little bit of wiggle room. It'll chunk you down to about half health. You want to make sure you're topped off in heals before you diamond back. That's a very important thing, unless you're going in as tank mimicry or healer mimicry, and it's not going to be a problem. Next up then, our third summon is this massive Cyclops. He'll do 24 carat swing, which is a version of the Ton swing, and he will suck you in, and then there's lots of AoEs, so you want to move out as soon as you're sucked in and then avoid the AoEs. All of that stuff will kill you pretty much at this point. Next we've got Gold Fever. This is the actual main part of the fight beginning now. It is a long fight, so just sit down. It's about 14 minutes with low DPS. You're probably going to end up with 12, probably going to reach about 11 minutes maximum with this sort of setup. I'm sure there are better ways of doing this. So in phase 2, basically we're limited to what abilities we can use. But before then, let's talk about this. So he'll summon all of the adds together. He'll do the blast, and you'll notice that the Calcabrina is facing one way, you sucked another, and then you want to go in between that safe zone into a hatch section. It looks quick, but it's not that bad. He will also follow up with 2 blasts here. Actually, no, sorry, 1 blast here. We're using Abyssal Transfixion, we're using J-Kick, we're using Phantom Flurry, and we're using our other ability as well from Innocence to do as much damage as possible, basically. He'll do Gravity again. This is exactly the same as before, so we want to make sure we're topped up, and then we're looming away. Make sure you pop Lucid as much as possible whenever it's off cooldown, because you want to have as much mana as physically possible. Just loom out of those blasts, keep the DPS high, spam Abyssal Transfixion until the other abilities that I mentioned come off cooldown. Make sure you're topped up. That's as simple as that. Next up we have some quite annoying mechanics. One is called Goldor Rush. We'll talk about that in a second. He does another Blizzard. You can interrupt that again. Easy peasy with your Sardine. We're spamming Abyssal Transfixion. It is just a very long way of doing this. So Goldor Rush will do a knockback, so you want to go in. And he will also make a Quake. So you want to pay attention to where that middle one is and then step back in it whilst avoiding the other pancakes. You don't want to go into the Quake. Trust me, it's a one-shot. I think most of those are a one-shot, actually. He will also follow up with 2 blasts here, which are the least of your concern. But It can be quite tricky to get used to the blasts plus the quake and the AoEs in Goldor Rush, which is one of the reasons why not having sprint is one of the biggest sort of penalties, really, because you feel like that would be your crutch to rely on, but they take that away from you for this challenge. So then we've got the summons again. It's worth showing this as much as we physically can. Basically, there's a Calcabrina. That's the way we're going. We get sucked, and then we go over here to find a safe zone. It's as simple as that. So you want to always go the direction that the Calcabrina is at, basically, where she's facing towards. Go behind her. And I think there's not too much point in messing around. I think we'll start speeding up the footage now in places and try and get back to like the rush and some other bits to show you those again, just to make sure that we've got that all in. Obviously, he's going to do gravity and stuff like that again. We're going to loom away from the gravities, as you would already know by now. It's really not that difficult once you get used to it, but it took me a few tries to get used to. Next up then, we had a blizzard to interrupt between that, and we've got this rush again. I thought this was worth showing. So there's a pushback from the center. He does his quake. You're waiting for the quake to disappear, and then you're stepping in, and you're also avoiding all of those others, trying not to walk into other AoE mechanics, and also the blasts, of which he'll do 2 in a row. Yeah, once you get used to that, the fight is an absolute doddle. I think that's the hardest part of Act 2, is just dealing with the rush. It's because the fight is so long, you can easily get a little bit lethargic, make a mistake, and then die in a rush. That's where I ended up dying the most anyway. Again, we're going back into another Shining Summon. Might as well show this in its entirety, just to hammer home the point. Avoid the blast. Look for where the Calcabrina is. She'll do an AoE. Make sure you're that side of the golem. The golem sucks. Then go behind the Calcabrina in the corner towards the hatch section that's safe. And then move from the blast. Yeah, as simple as that, really. But it took me a while to get used to. So I'm not going to say it's easy at all. But yeah, after a while, it sort of sank in. We're going to speed up the footage again. I thought it would be worthwhile. We're going to show a couple more iterations of the same thing. Again, if people complain about the length of this video, I don't know what to tell you. If I do shorter videos, then I miss off points and, you know, somebody misses out. And we're going to timestamp the video as much as possible. But if you don't like the video, then there are plenty of other videos out there, I'm sure. I'm just trying to demonstrate this as clearly as I can with as much footage. We'll also upload an unedited, just flat out unedited run of this, so you can just see it in its entirety with no dialogue if you'd like as well. But yeah, I honestly think it's wise to show off as much as possible, because when I did the go-go guide, I did skip through a few things like fast forward, and it was a little bit clunky. The way to improve on that is actually just to not over edit and just to show the fight, really. So that's what we're going back to. So here's all of the summons. Again, we go behind the blast, we go towards the Calcabrina after we get sucked. We were in the wrong place there because we cyclopsed, but we still found a safe zone. So there's plenty of forgive and forget sort of mechanics that you can easily be forgiven for making the wrong choice. As long as you can find an AoE that, like a space between them, you are golden, funnily enough. Goldor is not that hard. He just appears to be until you know what you're doing. Again, Abyssal Transfixion, there might be better things, more damage rotations to do. It is what it is, right? I'm just trying to get this done with what I had access to, and at the time of recording, and just to get the achievement, really. So the last few percentile, nothing has changed at this point. We've seen all of the stuff. Again, here's another one of the Shining Summons of all of them. Again, with this side of the Golem guy, we baited that AoE that way. We went behind the Calcabrina. We found the hatched off square that's safe, and then we avoid the blast, and then we're doing a bit of damage, and hopefully the boss will die, which is taking longer than anyone expected. But yeah, the full thing is like 14 minutes or so here or there. But yeah, and there we go. All that glitters is blue. I was very happy when he bit the dust at the end there. So we got Modus Interruptus, which is for interrupting. We got a Walk in the Park for not sprinting. We got Elemental Mastery for using all 6 schools of magic. We got Enfeeble Me Tender and Going for Gold, which is of course not breaking the crystal. I don't think we even touched the crystal. One of the side effects of a lot of other spells is they do AoE splash damage, which is why we didn't go for them, because I didn't want to accidentally crush the crystal. But there we go. That's as simple as that. Nice and easy. That's how you get your achievement. Now, as you can see, there are plenty of other bonus things you can do on this fight. There are time-based runs, there are speed runs, but that is all you need to do. A non-speed run and just those 3 things to get the achievement and a weapon. So of course with this you get the achievement and a title glitterier than Goldor, which is quite funny actually. I think that's quite a good little reward. Additionally, if we go over to where Martin is at the Allied Seal Exchange guy at the Blue Mage, you'll be able to exchange 800 of your seals for a new weapon. 800 allied seals. You'll get the Gentle Mage's Umbrella, which is a 530 level 80 Blue Mage weapon with 2 sockets. It's pretty cool actually. I would say that that would be the go-to weapon. Definitely, because I don't know how else you're going to get one. And it looks really cool. It dies very nicely as well. Let's have a bit of a die preview as well once we're looking at this. This is actually one of the winners of the weapon design contest. So the person who won that must be especially happy that this has been added to such a prestigious achievement. This is not just, you know, Daddy's first Blue Mage weapon. This is actually quite a taxing achievement. So that's quite prestigious, quite cool, and congratulations to the person who designed this wonderful thing. It is, of course, a parasol. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It matches the aesthetic of this outfit perfectly. Yeah, what's not to love? And of course, the title is the glitterier than Goldor. So if you want to go around rubbing it in Goldor's face, metaphorically, you totally can. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully it helped. If it did, leave me some comments below. If you've got some suggestions of how, you know, how you did it or how you would replace spells. Obviously, this is not MLG pro gameplay. This is just generic Meoni who doesn't know how to use GCDs properly, getting achievements. So, yeah, that aside, it can be done better, obviously. Much love. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the patch. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.